Exciting week, a couple of things coming up. So these are the 4 things I just wanted to alert. Let me start with the least controversial. I'm doing my second town hall meeting in the Havens Court area. That is the area, one of the areas with the highest violence in the city. It is an area where we've started some new initiatives. So for instance, our second baby college program is going to be there, and that's based on the Harlem Kids Zone model, where we're trying to look for pregnant women and parents of children under 3 to do some parent training and support. And it's an exciting program. In Harlem, the parents who go for these programs, 90% of them go on to preschool, and of those preschoolers, 100% of them are ready for kindergarten at the start of school, and 95% of them are at grade level by 5th grade. So this is a way of just totally changing young families in poverty and their future. We are going to have a lot of kids involved with this. We did walking last time with a lot of adults, and we did cleanups. This time we got a lot of the kids groups, youth groups. So the youth group at Lions Crossing, the youth group from the Fromm Dojo nearby, and the youth group from Havens Court. So 3 groups of young people are going to mobilize their parents and their fellow students. And so we're going to see. It might be a little younger mix in our first one in West Oakland, but I'm pretty excited about this. I personally walked this without benefit of all the media attention. I was walking seminary in that neighborhood last weekend, and so I'm expecting a fairly decent turnout. The second thing is, you've all been pressing me on the city administrator. I'm in negotiations with our top candidate. Should we lose him, I'm pretty confident in my second choice. So I expect to make an announcement sometime next week, one way or the other. On Monday, I am proposing to the City Council that they place back on the ballot some tax proposals. It's part of an overall plan for the budget that you'll see when we roll it out in March. In order to balance a budget given the state and the federal and the local property tax deficits, everyone's going to have to give a little bit if we want to preserve the city and if we want to preserve the services. So the 2 measures and maybe 3 measures that we're putting in front of the City Council to generate revenue, is one, probably a parcel tax for $80 for the general fund. The polls show that it can pass. Obviously a lot can happen between now and June, but the poll numbers were very good. We are also considering, may or may not, trying the telephone tax again. It only needs a 50%. The poll shows that could pass. The council may not want to do both. It will be up to them. The one so one or the other. And the reason I put the partial tax is it would raise about $11 million. I'm looking at a $46 million structural deficit, so that would be important. And so that's the option that we're looking at most. We're also looking at possibly doing another real estate transfer fix. We did one 2 years ago, to make sure that corporations couldn't get out of the loophole. Sometimes when they transferred property, even though it was a new buyer, they would keep the same name and just say that they were changing the board, and that way they didn't have to pay increased taxes on the real estate transfer. There's another semi-loophole, but also something that San Francisco just did, that in big real estate sales, adding a slightly higher transfer tax for properties over, I think we're going to go at $5 million. And so we're working on those proposals. Those will be in the packet tonight. Thursday night tonight, we put them in the packet. We're still working on them, and I still have to prove the final language. So those are all options that we're putting in front of the City Council. It again would only handle about a quarter of the long-term deficit. Employee give-backs, cuts will make up a full package to get to the $46 million. And then increased revenues in some cases. I think people realize how badly hurting the city is. This will be our 5th year of straight cuts. even if I just proportionally put it in the same measures as we currently have, 50% goes to police. Maybe this time nothing has to go to fire, but all those services are hurting. Obviously, a significant part will go to public safety because they already get a significant part of the budget. But, you know, it's a funny city. The polling often shows that, for instance, that money just for police doesn't get you 2/3. And that actually, historically, people are more willing to give money to the violence prevention programs than to give money to police, and that was true in this poll too, that they want a partnership. What the poll did say is that people were willing, mostly because they think the city is moving forward and they don't want that progress to stop. That was the most convincing argument. You know, and so, yes, I think a significant part will go to public safety because half of it goes to public safety, but I also can use the money then to preserve other programs that people in the city also treasure. We're often divided, and people try to pit the two things together. I actually think this is the time for a general parcel tax, and that appears to do better. It's a temporary parcel tax for 5 years. It's a much lower amount. I think that the citizens get that the cities are being battered by cuts. And like I said, what was interesting in the poll is that the most convincing argument is that people felt that the city was moving forward and that they didn't want the progress to stop. Right, and you know, and moving forward both in public safety and just moving forward as a city, and so that's what I'm asking people to help me here. It's not going to be the only way. And with $46 million of cuts, there are going to be plenty of things that the employees will be contributing again. I'm going to be asking for a 2-tier on the pension. I'm going to be asking people to do more with less again. And I'm going to be making some cuts. I'm going to flatten the organization. There will definitely be probably some elimination of some positions. I don't know how great yet. Depends on how great the crisis is. So I'm trying, as always, to be fair, to make sure everybody puts in their share because it's a tough time for everybody. And I'm trying to make sure nobody takes an unfair share. Many cities across the state have been making moves on redevelopment, and that's why I was just sent for Dan Lindheim to come. We were waiting to actually see the legislation that the governor was putting forward. That came out middle of last week, and it looks like we've been told by our lobbyists that it's going to move earlier also to a vote than we had expected. So that's why we called the emergency council meeting. Otherwise, we would have just put it into the regular council meeting. We put a different groups of proposals in front of the city council today, and they're still working on the language of some of them, and it fits in basically 3 categories. One of them is there were a lot of nonprofit affordable housing projects have been in line for state and federal funding. We've been holding on to the matching funds. We've decided to go ahead and bond on it at this time to protect them, to make sure that they're not snatched away, so that they'll be legally committed. There's a list of about, I don't have the binder in front of me, there's a list of about 10 affordable housing projects that will receive those bonds. Secondly, in order to protect assets, under the governor's proposal, they could actually seize the redevelopment properties, and including properties like the Army base, huge pieces of the city's property. And so we're actually doing a series of sales today. We are selling some redevelopment property to the city to protect it, and we are selling some city properties to the redevelopment agency to protect cash, and then we're leasing back those properties to the city. Nothing that we're doing today is new. Other cities are doing it. Nothing is irreversible. Should the governor's proposal not pass, or should the courts rule that they actually have to go to the state for a constitutional amendment, which actually most of the city's lawyers think, the big city League of Cities think would happen. But the main thing is we don't want all of the assets tied up in legal battles for years and years. So this is our way to protect them while the legal battle is going on and keep them in the city's hands. And so that's what we're basically doing here. The biggest fight for us urban areas is that redevelopment is supposed to help. The enterprise zones and redevelopment is supposed to help really poor and blighted neighborhoods turn their neighborhoods around. And it's been very successful in this city. I mean, that's why we did the press conference at Uptown. For that to go away would be literally a shift of wealth away from the poor areas, probably more to suburban areas. If you just sort of say, okay, no special tax benefits for these poor and blighted areas. We don't care about equity. We don't care about having urban blight, et cetera, and we're just going to get rid of that. Then what you do is in poor urban and poor rural areas, is you're basically saying, tough luck, and then there will be costs for that people aren't measuring. Higher unemployment rate, higher crime rates, et cetera. So that's why this whole thing is crazy, and people are trying to pit poor people in one aspect of their life against them in another part of their life, or poor people versus schools, et cetera. This is not the kind of discussion that we should have. It is no secret that only 30% of African-American males right now are graduating from high school, and that the unemployment in East Oakland is twice the national average. So are you going to use these mechanisms to change that or not? We have successfully been doing that to change that. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. So yeah, it matters to me. It may not matter to them, but it matters to me.